Hi, parents and carers. It's Damien Toussaint here from Matthew Flinders Girls, and I'm here with Miss Cindy Robinson and Miss Jo Toon, and we put together a information set of slides for you, particularly for parents of VCE and VCE vocational major students, just to provide you with important and essential information that may be of use for you when you're having conversations with your child about VCE and how they're travelling this year, and some other resources that you might find useful when the time is right. So in the first, we've just included some links to some resources for parents, which include some information from VCAR about VCE and VCE vocational major, including the handbook, which is the administrative handbook that's produced by VCAR, which is basically the rule book for all schools in terms of implementing and offering VCE and VCE vocational major. A link to Healthy Minds program, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. And of course, links to our attendance policy and our extension of time policy that we'll also talk about a little bit later on.
So this slide here looks at the various places you can go to for contacts for your student at Matthew Flinders, and the first one there is your VCE classroom teacher. So if there's an issue to do with their class, their subjects that they're doing, or a teacher, they're probably the best port of call, and you can email them through Compass. Next step might be home group teachers, and depending on what year level they're in, you've got some contacts there. If it's to do with some more administrative VCE type issues, then Miss Cindy Robinson is the best port of call, and Miss Tracy Moore looks at all pathway type issues. So whether it's to do with the subjects they're doing, subjects they want to do next year, or even beyond school. This slide has the house leaders. So depending on what house your student is in, if it's a bigger issue that maybe all teachers should be aware of that teach your student, then the appropriate house leader is listed then there. And again, you can find their contact details on Compass. This is a map of the VCE pathways, and really it's just showing how VCE vocational major sits inside the bigger Victorian Certificate of Education, or VCE, and those two little yellow boxes show the main pathways of each one of those.
For students to be successful at gaining a VCE certificate, both in VCE and VCE VM, they must complete at least 16 units over the 2-year period. These units must include English and 3 other sequences of 3-4 studies. VET studies can also be counted as a 3-4 sequence in their certificate.
So VCAR, which is the Victorian Curriculum Assessment Authority, is the organisation that manages all schools and the curriculum requirements, including the administration of VCE and VCE VM. And so basically you have a screenshot of the cover of the administration handbook, which is basically the rule book that all schools have to adhere to for all VCE providers, which includes Matthew Flinders, and it outlines very clear specifications around assessment, reporting, and all requirements to do with every VCE study design. We have our own version of this, which we produce for students. So it's not, it's basically a repetition of the key essential things that are important in the VCE handbook. The VCAR handbook is a couple of 100 pages long. Ours is a little shorter, but it communicates very clearly to our VCE students what's expected, what's required, and all of the rules that they need to adhere to. We've given each of our Year 12 students and Year 11 students a hard copy of this. There's also a copy available on Compass. But we recommend that you as a parent ask your child about their VCE handbook and about the special parts or the important parts that they've looked at the moment. This includes things like submitting work. It includes particular rules around assessments. It includes particular rules around authentication, which is a fancy word for ensuring that the work produced by the student is actually the student's work. It includes some key dates. It includes our attendance policy and it includes other policies that are important for the students to know. So as part of that, all schools have obligations to students. And so this is a list of the kinds of things that a school is required to inform each student in writing of the following. And those things are put in writing in our VCE student handbook, which I've just shown in the previous slide. They include things like all work that the students need to complete in order to gain an S in a particular VCE study, requirements for class attendance, rules on plagiarism, how to submit work, timelines and deadlines, how to obtain an extension of time, and if they had any particular concerns, how to lodge an appeal. So we very clearly communicate those things either through the handbook, or individual classroom teachers will provide an assessment schedule, which will sort of outline the information that the student needs to know about how to be successful in that particular subject and achieve an S.
So we just wanted to outline a little bit more about the submission of work, or submission of learning tasks, as we tend to call them. So VCE teachers set due dates for all learning tasks, and students must adhere to those due dates. VCE teachers will communicate to the students all the work that needs to be completed to achieve a satisfactory outcome for a unit. They'll communicate exactly the date when this work needs to be completed and the conditions under which that work needs to be completed. And again, a link to the extension of time policy. So if the student cannot or forecast that they won't be able to meet that due date, there's a process that they need to follow to be able to gain an extension of time for that piece of work.
So the next couple of slides are about attendance, which is of particular importance at VCE because the VCAR, or the Victorian Curriculum Assessment Authority, specify that all VCE units require 50 hours of class time, which equates to about 70% of timetable classes in any given subject sequence. So our expectation is that our students attend all timetable classes and they remain at school all day, of course, unless they're doing a vet subject and they're leaving the school with a particular arrangement. And so that means that the total attendance for a unit of study is an important factor in determining satisfactory completion of a unit. So I suppose a word of warning for parents, and you guys can look at this on Compass as well and monitor this just as we do. But if a student's attendance in class falls below 70% in any unit, then an N, or a not satisfactory result, is the school's policy. It doesn't happen often, but it does occasionally happen where a student's attendance has been poor and they haven't achieved the required 50 hours of class time, and therefore it's been the teacher's obligation to the student to actually not give them an S because they haven't been in class enough time to develop an understanding of the content and be able to successfully participate in the activities and any assessment. The next couple of slides are about what we consider an approved absence, and this is in the attendance policy, and it's quite clearly laid out for not just VCE students but for all students, but it's of particular importance in a VCE over the VCE years. So approved absences include a medical certificate, if there's been bereavement in the family, anything a school choice, which has been approved by a house leader, and any religious or cultural observance, again, which has also been, the house leader's been informed about that within 5 days of that taking place. We also have some very clear unapproved absences. So any illness which hasn't have a medical certificate with it, any parent choice that we consider unauthorised, for example, going shopping, missing the bus, driving lessons, extended family holidays, and those sorts of things. School refusal is considered an unapproved absence, and of course any work commitments. So we ask our VCE students or any students studying VCE to be able to manage those work commitments so that they don't impact negatively on them adhering to the 50 hours that they need to be in class or achieve that 70% attendance rate. So what you can do as a parent, and that's what this slide is showing, is a screenshot of when you log into your Compass portal. You can actually have a look at your child's attendance for each subject, and you can have a look at the column which has been highlighted to see whether they're actually above or below 70% requirement, and have a conversation with them about if that doesn't appear to be where it should be, about why that might be the case. It might be that you need to approve a particular absence that you can do through Compass, or maybe just phone the office to ask a clarifying question about what needs to happen if an absence has been missed that actually was approved, or a further conversation with the classroom teacher around that. We ask our classroom teachers to communicate that in a Compass post, which is an email, which will come to you if your child's attendance drops below a certain level. Which might sort of a red flag, which might mean then a conversation between the classroom teacher and you about what needs to happen in order for your child to be able to be successful as far as their attendance is concerned. So just to shift from attendance to this wellbeing wheel and the graphic that's in front of you, Year 12s had a special day on the first day back, and they participated in a workshop with a gentleman named Dr. Tom Nemi, who comes from Healthy Minds. Now, Dr. Tom is a clinical psychologist who does a lot of work with Year 12 students, and he introduced our Year 12s, and this is useful for our Year 11 students and even our Year 10 students studying a VCE subject as well. And Tom talked about being proactive in terms of the students' well-being, and this is probably an area that parents and carers can be most supportive of your child, as far as what can be a very stressful year. So the well-being wheel sort of breaks well-being into a number of different sections, and Tom was talking about the key messages on this slide that we'd like to reiterate with you, and hopefully they're messages that you can emphasise with your child on a day-to-day sort of basis, or when the time's right. As far as being strategic and proactive with their well-being and their mental health, not just kind of hoping that their mental health and their well-being will look after itself, but actually having some goals around that. And Tom did a bit of goal setting with the Year 12s on that day around which area they felt they could probably do the most work in to improve. And so that's something we'll continue working with them over the course of the year. So obviously you can enhance each of those 6 factors of the wellbeing wheel by being proactive and strategic and forward thinking about what you do. And Tom spent quite a bit of time on the day talking about how mental health, wellbeing and academic performance are all very closely linked. He also dove fairly deeply into 2 other parts of that, and that was about challenging unhelpful perfectionism, which might be something for you to ask your Year 12 student, for those Year 12 parents and carers, and also how to apply healthy thinking, and that might be another good conversation starter around dinner or in the car or at the right moment about what your child's doing as far as healthy thinking goes, to be proactive in relation to their own.
You may ask the question on how you can support your child during these 2 years that have come very tense and hard for them. Every child is different and everyone learns differently. So please look at your child and ask them, instead of telling them, how you can help and support them. Being through it myself, these things helped with my children, supporting them with their sleep, technology use, study and homework, their part-time work commitments and social engagements. All of these add to how they handle the day at school and how they handle the study at home. Please engage with your child. Be curious and ask them what they've done or what they're going to do.
The learning of your student in VCE is a little bit of a team approach, I think, from the student and from you guys as parent carers, and then also from the school. But please, any questions, flick them through to the appropriate place. We don't want any questions to go unanswered. And reiterating again that the VCE classroom teachers are probably your first port of call for most issues, but then you can roll into the home group teachers, and if it's a VCE administration type question, then Cindy Robinson's the lady to contact, and Pathways being Tracy Moore.